Happy holidays and welcome back to the Nailmas series. In today's video, I will be showing you how I do polygel nails with my non-dominant hand and how to do this icy blue chrome nail design for the winter, so stay tuned and keep watching. All products will be listed in the description, and I have more polygel and nail art ideas on my page that you can check out. So we're gonna start with pushing back the cuticle very gently. I have a lot of growth and just like built up nail glue and just grime on my nails because I did a lot of press-on nails during the Halloween season, and I just haven't done my actual nails on my right hand in a long time. So I had a lot of cuticle to clean up, so I'm just pushing that back gently before I go back in with a fine grit sanding band on a very low speed. This is a very fine grit sanding band, I should correct myself. This is a 240 grit sanding band, and I'm using this at a very low speed to basically go over the cuticle and remove the shine on the nail. This is just gonna help clean up the nail as well as create kind of an etched surface that'll help your nail tips and your base coat and your polygel stick better too. I'm going to shorten the natural nail just a little bit. And like I said, we are going to be doing nails with my non-dominant hand today, and this is something a lot of people struggle with because, you know, if you're right-handed, you're not super used to using your left hand, so there's really no trick to it besides getting used to it, practicing, and basically training the muscles in your non-dominant hand to basically do the things that you're used to doing with your dominant hand when you do nails. So there are a couple of, techniques you can use, which I will share throughout this video. But before we get into that, we're gonna glue on our tips after I've dehydrated and cleansed with Young Nail Swipe. These are the Vivace stiletto tips from Amazon. They will be linked in the description. They come in 10 different sizes. These are a perfect length for me. They are a medium to longer length. So I'm basically just sizing them out to make sure they fit sidewall to sidewall. This is really important for retention. If you feel like you have to force the nail tip down for it to fit, it's too small. Like here, this is way too small for me. You also don't want them to be too big because they'll likely just pop off. If you're kind of in between sizes, you can file them down. But once you find a size that fits sidewall to sidewall, you're gonna take some Young Nails brush on glue, place a drop at the center, hold it at the free edge for about 10 seconds. Just try to stay really still and apply pressure and just let it, do its thing. And in like 10 to 15 seconds, it should be pretty secure. So you can see here, I'm just kind of showing you that like this nail tip is not going anywhere. So I really love that brush on glue for that reason. It's easy to use and it's pretty strong. Now you can awkwardly watch me try to file the nail tip into an almond shape. Again, using your non-dominant hand, it just looks funny and it feels funny, and I had not done it for a long time, so I was struggling a bit, but it just takes a little bit longer. And you just got to be a little bit more careful with your movements, but you can definitely achieve, good results. So we're just filing under the nail to create an almond/round shape. So if you're looking to create a round shape, doesn't matter how long or short the nail is, filing under the free edge will help achieve that. You don't want to over file it, you don't want to thin it out too much, but you can also finish it off by just rounding out the corners, and I'm just bringing in the sides a little bit because I like more of a tapered look, and then you can round out the free edge like I'm doing here. Now we are going to blend that nail tip with the natural nail. So taking that same sanding band at a very low speed, we are just going over the nail tip. We're not going on the natural nail itself. And then we're just removing the shine from the rest of the nail tip and just trying to do that very slowly and balance my hands, and then taking some rubbing alcohol and getting rid of that dust. Now we're gonna move on to primer. So I'm just using some Young Nails Protein Bond on the natural nail, working my way from the bottom of the nail to the top to avoid any flooding and just get the most use of that product. Once it air dries, we're gonna go in with a base coat, which is very important for polygel. You need to use a gel base coat and fully cure that. So I am taking some Madam Glam gel base coat. You can see I'm moving very slowly here and just trying to make sure that it's nice and evenly covered. Apply a layer to each nail, go ahead and cure it, and you should end up with something like this. Now let's get ready for application. We're gonna take some 70% isopropyl alcohol. This is what I use as my slip solution. This is the liquid that helps mold the polygel, and I just like to put it in a little dapping dish. If you've been watching my videos for a while, you know that I pretty much use more or less the same products, and they're mostly from Amazon, so you can find all the details in the description. I'm using the French press polygel from Makar and this two-way Kads-Kalinsky brush. Just getting a little bit of liquid in the brush just to kind of, work it in there. Hadn't used it in a little bit, and then just making sure I have a paper towel or some lint-free wipes nearby to just drain the excess liquid out of there. So I'm just showing here that, you don't want to have too much liquid in your brush. You just want enough to basically help mold the product. You don't want to flood the nail with too much liquid. And from there, you basically just want to take your first bead of polygel, get some liquid on your brush, and just start patting and moving everything into place. Application is definitely going to be a little bit slower when you're using, your opposite hand, but basically the technique is the same. You want to pat everything into place and just start removing any excess product and make sure you're keeping the sidewalls clean. And definitely one tip that helps me is just trying to make sure that my hands are stabilized. So like here, I do try to kind of more or less rest my thumb on my hand. And then just getting really comfortable with your brush, just making sure that your brush is something that you're comfortable using and kind of maneuvering in different ways. So I do find that using a bigger brush helps me a lot. So just take your time and work through bead by bead, and then we can start moving on to the next hand. So I like to place a bead kind of near the free edge, and that will be used to kind of cover the area from the nail tip to the free edge. So patting things into place and then dragging the product down to kind of smooth it out and even it out. And I do cure between each bead in my nail lamp fully before I go in with another bead. So I like to apply, sometimes I do one finger at a time, or sometimes I'll apply like a bead on each finger, pat it into place, and then cure that. So just going back to the application here, you can see that I'm basically, once I've patted the product into place, especially near the free edge, you can basically just go ahead and start dragging it to smooth it out. Of course, the more pressure you apply dragging, the more product that will drag down. So you want to kind of find a balance between like a light pressure and, not applying too much pressure either, because you don't want to lose all of the structure you're building. But that is basically the motion you want to use, and using a bigger brush, in my opinion, does help. And then once you get to the cuticle bead, we're going to change our technique a little bit. So you can see here, I'm not necessarily patting and dragging yet. I'm actually just patting and tucking the corners into the cuticle, and I'm using a very light pressure. I'm tilting my brush upwards, and then if I feel like the product is not exactly where I want it, you can actually drag the product backwards, pat it into place and keep working it in that way. But definitely when you start off with the cuticle bead, place it below the cuticle and use the edges of your brush to tuck it in before you do any sort of patting or dragging, down the nail. So again, we're using the corners of our brush, we're tilting it left, right, and upwards as needed, tucking it into that cuticle area, and just kind of refining that shape, of the apex, patting things and moving things into place as needed before we drag the product down the rest of the nail. So I will just let the music play while you watch me continue to do this. And as I mentioned, I do have other tutorials on my page on how I do polygel application if you're interested in checking those out. Once everything is cured, there will be a sticky layer on top that you can remove with some Young Nail Swipe or rubbing alcohol. This is how the application is looking. We're gonna clean it up with shaping, so don't worry. We're gonna start off with a 5-in-1 fine grit drill bit, and we're gonna use this to clean up the cuticle area. we're starting to just work it around the cuticle, and then using the body of the bit, because this is a tapered bit, you can use the body of the bit to clean up and debulk other areas in the nail as well. And then I like to use it under the nail to clean up any excess product. Cleaning up excess product on top of the nail is just as important under the nail for kind of a clean look. Now I'm gonna go in with a bit of a more heavy-duty nail drill. This is a round pana bit. It's a lot coarser, and I use this to debulk and go over the entire surface of the nail and continue to refine that apex area. I go over all 5 nails with that, and definitely use your drill at a low speed. Since we're using our non-dominant hand, you wanna make sure that you have, really good control over your file. Then we're gonna start going in with our hand file. This is an 80/80 grit hand file, and these are really what bring the shape together. I feel like this is like, the second to last, but really important step. So hand filing, we're gonna go under the nail, remove any excess product, and just start thinning out that free edge if it's looking too bulky. As you can see, it looks a lot cleaner under the nails. Now we're gonna start bringing in those sidewalls. I like a tapered, kind of more of an almond stiletto look, so I'm just gonna start doing that. So I'm just trying to make sure I keep my file straight and that I maintain contact with the entire sidewall. This will help ensure that you're filing in evenly and all parts of the nail are getting tapered in. You don't want one part to be super skinny and the other, is still kind of bulky. So this really helps ensure that you're basically filing everything evenly, and definitely want to keep moving from side to side so that everything is symmetrical. And I hand file a little bit and I kind of reassess, especially when I go in to file over the surface of the nail. These are pretty coarse files, so definitely file a little bit, kind of check where things are at. If the application is looking smooth and even, you definitely don't need to overdo it with this file. But definitely when things are looking bulky and like I mentioned, you're doing nails with your non-dominant hand, this file comes in really handy to just help clean up that shape and give you like that really crispy shape, especially if you're doing like square nails, but as you can see, like super helpful even for almond nails here. So these are the 80/80 grit hand files from Amazon, and I use these religiously, so I'll have them linked in the description. And then once I'm done, I basically just kind of redefine the shape, make sure everything's looking nice and round, and you can see it's looking much better than when we started. So shaping, definitely, learning good shaping techniques makes a huge difference. Of course, we want to aim for like good application, but it does help. Now we're just gonna go over everything with that same very fine grit sanding band just to kind of buff anything out, make sure everything is really nice and smooth before we go in with some young nail swipe and remove any dust and create a nice dehydrated clean surface. We're gonna do a really simple look. We're just gonna polish our nails and do some chrome powder. Lately, I've been into polishing my nails more. I'm just trying to like make a habit out of it because I have so many gel polishes, so many interesting colors to use. So, polishing your nails and adding some chrome powder is definitely like an easy thing that you can do, especially with your non-dominant hand. So I'm gonna be using this color called D&D Hawaiian Blue, one of my favorite kind of sky blue colors. It's available on Amazon, also will be in the description. And when it comes to polishing, especially with your left hand, if you're right-handed, you just wanna take it slow, and you wanna just start slowly working your way towards the cuticle. I would not start at the cuticle, I would start at the bottom and work towards it. Once you see most of the nail is covered, you're gonna feel a lot more confident. So leave the hardest part for last, and as you continue to inch your way closer to the cuticle, you'll basically just need to fill in that gap with the liner brush. I find this is the easiest way to do it. So I place a little bit of that gel polish on a nail art palette, and I take a thin liner brush and I basically just fill in that gap between the cuticle and just try to make sure everything is nice and clean and even. Polishing is a skill in itself that I think gets really overlooked. I know that I did not place a lot of emphasis on it, but I'm trying to get more comfortable with it. And as you can see, you can definitely apply any gel polish you have over polygel, just like you would with acrylic or gel-X. So it's a great way to just use any fun colors that you might have. Once we do that, we're gonna cure and move on to the next nail. So again, starting with everything but the cuticle, working our way towards it, you know, getting towards the side walls. And basically you want to fan out your brush when you get to the cuticle and like inch it towards that, as I'm doing here. You do want to use thin layers. You don't want to use thick layers when it comes to gel polish because you want to make sure everything cures properly. And then go ahead and take your liner brush and clean that up. And this is the easiest way that I've found to polish so far. Using the liner brush really helps, especially if you're not super comfortable getting into those corners with the brush from the gel polish bottle. So I also just like to take a lint-free wipe and remove any excess gel polish under the nail, because that is another way that your nail can look bulky, and you definitely don't want that after we've done all that hard work shaping. So I did do 2 layers of gel polish. I did a first layer, cured that, and went back in with the second layer. Definitely want to keep the layers thin, but this just kind of helps ensure that you have full coverage and that your color is, you know, looking as pigmented as possible. And here's how it looks with that technique. So you can see, you know, using the gel polish, the brush, and then the cuticle, you know, the liner brush around the cuticle helps a lot. So we're going to be using liquid chrome today, so I'm going to apply a layer of the Coupa gel top coat on each nail and fully cure that. So I've used both liquid chrome and chrome powder. I like them for different reasons. They do have a little bit of a different effect and look, I feel like. I do think that you get more out of the product with the chrome powder, just because I feel like for some reason with the liquid chrome, especially the one that I've used, the product runs out pretty quickly. Maybe it's just the consistency of it versus using a powder, but like I said, I still really like how the liquid chrome looks, so I do think that I would try to keep, you know, both liquid chrome and chrome powder like in my supply kit. So anyways, this is from Zillabeau. It kind of looks like a lip gloss consistency. We're gonna take these mini sponges from Amazon. I love using these for auras, ombres, other details. And I basically just apply a little bit on the sponge and then work it into the nail. You do want to apply a little bit of pressure and just make sure you're getting into all the corners, and it should give you a chrome effect pretty quickly. And you know, depending on what your base color is, the chrome effect will look different based on that. So you can see that this is what it looks like with the light blue. It's kind of subtle, but it's definitely still there. So I think this was super nice for like some icy blue winter nails. So we just basically keep reapplying the liquid chrome to the sponge and working it in. Because I'm almost out and you could use this technique too, you can just apply it on the nail and rub it in, but I do think it works a little bit better with the sponge. But of course it's gonna soak up some of your product, but you can see the look, you know, pretty much turns out more or less the same, and this is how it looks. You know, it basically adds a really nice and subtle effect to your nails. Chrome is like just a really great way to like elevate any simple nail set. Once we fully cured it, we're gonna go ahead and apply our top coat again to seal it all in, using that Coupa top coat again and just making sure we get a really nice even coverage. And we're gonna do that to all 5 nails and then cure it, and then we will be done. And here is how the nails turned out. You can use some rubbing alcohol and just clean up the excess chrome if it's gotten around your fingers. So you can see it's more cleaned up in these videos. So here's the final look. I really enjoyed doing this kind of more simple look for my non-dominant hand. I think this color is perfect for winter, and the liquid chrome adds like a really nice effect. All products will be in the description, and as I mentioned, I do have other polygel and nail art tutorials on my page, and we will be continuing with the Nailmas series, so stay tuned. Thank you for watching.